Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the Deceptilab and welcome to the last live stream of 2023. It's your boy Freeze hanging out in the Deceptilab as always. And today, we got a couple of topics. And to be honest with you, I started out the week just looking at like comparisons to a lot of different bots just because um, one of the things I was looking at, obviously still in testing with the new endurance bot. And I started thinking about some of the comparisons that we make to other bots. And so one of the things I wanted to look at was some of our rush tanks and what are some of the rush style tanks missing, the rush warrior class missing to make them relevant in the meta. Obviously right now, all the craze is about Headstrong and pipes. Someone use like myself would use Bludgeon and Headstrong, but that's about it. So we're gonna go take an in-depth look at that and see. Maybe we can come up with some ideas of how to make some of these tanks a little bit better. And I gotta start off by giving credit to the homie Big Blade for talking about a particular theory that he was looking at with Titans. And I started digging into it a little tiny bit. I haven't really fully dug into it, but I started digging into it to see if there was a way for you to win. I don't want to say every Titan battle because there's always chances that you can lose a battle, but I think I found a way that you can win at least 85% of the battles based off of the information that he gave me. So definitely want to talk about it, see if there's any validity to it, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. But before we get into any of that, let's flip over to this week's newsletter where we're going to talk about this week's event. And this week's event is called Lethal Indemnity. And let me get that up on my screen. So Lethal Indemnity, we got us another 10K event. And I actually heard a couple of people in a few of the chats that I'm in on the Line app um, just kind of complaining and saying it's a bunch of individual events. It's the holidays, man. So like the Space Ape's not around. It's kind of typical, but we're also going to have an individual endurance coming up behind it. And yeah, should be pretty good. I know last week I was sitting there and they said 10K and they actually added more levels at the end of it. So I hope that's the case this week. It doesn't explicitly say that, but yeah, some of the prizes you can get: War for Cybertron Skin Cool. You can also get up to 2.5K 4-star shards, 7.5K 3-star shards, and 30K premiums, as well as it says 4 times the 500K Troop XP items. And is that right? Is it 200K Spark and 2 million? Yeah, 200K Spark and 2 million of Alloy and Energon. So standard 10K event, typical battle zones. We've got season 23 of the Cyber Pass as well. And like we said, this is the next to last week of the endurance. Next weekend is going to be the endurance event. Now, I already showed off some of what the endurance bots can do in my last live stream. Um, I'll probably talk a little bit about the conversation we're having in playtest here in a little bit. But yeah, like when we get down to the end of the year like that and Space Ape's on vacation, it's just newsletter's really short. So that's the news for this week. So let's go take a look and see who we got in the chat. And it looks like E-Rods was first to the chat. Thanks for joining, buddy. And because you were first in the chat, hit me up on Discord. After this, I'll give you a Freezy chest. And I will also enter you. And next week, we're supposed to be doing the giveaway for the Junkie tour. We've been pushing that off for a little bit, so I'll give you an entry in that as well. Then we got Robert C4, my fellow friend and content creator as well, and he is planning because he's a huge Leo Zach fan. You can actually see his Leo Zach icon in his in his profile pic. Um, so he's going to be working on a stream for that talking about Leo Zach and how to use them and everything. I know he's already taught me a thing or two, so make sure you guys check that out. I'll try to share that information when he does go set up that live stream as well. I'm looking forward to it. Let's see. We also had my alliance mate Candyman in there as well, who who made it very clear that his Leo Zach is collecting dust until he gets a couple of different items, G1, ability 11, stuff like that. So maybe we can start advocating for that. Particularly like when you start putting bots in 5-star batches, it's one of those things that I'd like to see. Let's see, my good friend and moderator and fellow content creator, Mercenary Terror, is with us again. So thanks for joining and thanks for helping out the channel. As well as my friend Lord Avix is with us again today. Thanks for joining, Lord Avix. And I'm actually laughing at some of the comments because if you guys saw early in the week, I made a short. I was actually just trying to practice my shorts. My shorts typically really suck, and so I had gotten to some of my editing software, and I was like, "Nah, I can do this," you know. And I wanted to make something, and it actually wound up being my top short of all time on this channel. So, you know, shout out to me for that. But yeah, I saw a lot of people just with some of the language that I use up there because we were talking about groundhog and big daddy, and that's how I use the term. You know, busting your cheeks. So you tired of these combats busting your cheeks, and so everybody got a kick out of that. I had a little AI voice up there. It's actually pretty hilarious if you hadn't seen it. Go on the channel and check it out. But yeah, I was just talking about how Big Daddy is susceptible to stun, and I actually wound up giving somebody some advice about that in one of my line chats earlier this week. And I was like, look, man, if you run into that problem, he's just sitting up there, just because his range is so great. If you can find a way, like I use Slipstream, air raid for you guys on the Autobot side, just give him a quick stun. It keeps him out of the game for quite a bit, and then eventually you just path your way to him and just take him out easily. So, um, as funny as the short was, it's one of those things to think about when you are out there in the battlefield. So let's see who else we got. We got my good friend Chris Harmon, fellow one of well not I will get used to saying fellow content creator, but moderator and member. Thanks for joining, buddy. As well as Alpha Trion One's with us again. Thanks for joining. And I don't think I think I got everyone. Let me see. Oh no, I didn't. I guess Spencer 394 is in there again with us. So thanks for joining. Mercenary Terrorist says shorts are the most stupid thing ever, man. Let me know why you think that, man. For me personally, as a creator, I'm not good at them, but I've become pretty decent at editing, and I think that with shorts takes a lot of editing. But when you look at the phenomenon that's become TikTok, and you look at like Instagram and stuff like that, like anytime I go on Instagram, it's pretty much me making like a short or something like that. I don't mind them, especially when you look at the attention span of people today. People want to just something quick to look at, laugh, maybe share. It's good for that kind of stuff. I like my long form content, and I like my live streams more. I like my live streams the most. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. And it looks like I see a couple people already talking about the topic a little bit. And and shout out to Chris Harmon. He just had his birthday the other day. I said I got to wish him a happy birthday on the actual day. But happy birthday to you, old man. uh, and I was looking around at some of the comments though, because on the day's topic about tanks, I see that Robert C4 dropped Headstrong and picked up C Clamp. So we'll probably talk about that a little bit later on because I got my ideas on probably why you did that, but maybe I'm wrong. So drop it in the chat. Let's see. Yeah, Mercenary Terrio signs off on C Clamp, says that was his warrior. Oh, Mercenary Terrio give me a shout out for the shirt that I got on. He got a periodic table. They got a periodic table of elements for the Transformers. I need to get that. So I got the Marvel characters on mine. I said I need to get a Transformers version. So I'm gonna look that up on Amazon and see where I can find that after this. So appreciate me let me know that. Yeah, Candyman agrees with me. Says 10K event is fine. We got next week. We got next week coming. So that's the endurance. It's gonna be individual. So a lot of people gonna be ready for that. Escloasi joined us as well. Thanks for joining, buddy. Yeah, Spencer 394 agrees with us, saying that a lot of people with short attention spans are the ones that watch the shorts. Chris Harmon said he was waiting for my voice, and then it was someone else's. Yeah, I did that using AI, and dude, like, there's a lot of AI tools. So I'll share something with you guys, just based on. So when I first started doing content creating, uh, what I was actually looking for was I was looking for to learn some skills that I was using for my future career after I get done with the military. And so I had started to master those skills, and so I'm moving on to the next phase, everything that I'm doing right now. So um, that's why I actually started doing it, and then yeah, and that's where we at right now. So yeah, so a part of that, I say all that because a part of that is the particular career field that I'm going into, which is like instructional design. They're leaning really, really heavy on AI right now, and so I was like, hey, you know what I should do? I should do something with AI, make it, and I should do something with my video editing skills, and just make it as flawless as I can make it. So I sat down there. I got up real, real early while I was on break, and I just started putting that together, and I really enjoyed it. I showed it to my wife. My wife watches it a couple of times every day just to laugh at it, like it's hilarious to me. So, uh, but yeah, but anyway, let me start rambling on. I'm gonna switch over to the full screen battlefield. We're gonna talk a little bit about these rushing warriors today, rush tanks. And I always talk about how much I love them, right, on the channel. Anybody that knows, and they know my story about Tantrum and how I thought he was awesome and all of these things. But I will say this: I'm gonna look primarily at 4 stars today because all of them don't have a 5-star version. But one of the things that I was looking at, and primarily in my conversation I was having with Dale, we talked a little bit about Bludgeon and Headstrong and how there's a large disparity between those bots. When for you guys on the Autobot side, I'm talking about Ironhide and Pipes. There's a little bit of a disparity between those bots and the other bots that are similar. Now, there's a lot of rush style warrior class bots in this game, right? Some of them I'm not even talking about today. Like Drill Horn, we've already talked about quite a bit. I'll pop them up on the screen real quick. But the thing is, like Drill Horn right now, he's slow. I was actually doing some testing around with him the other day, Megatronus. So I'm talking about traditional rush style warriors. Um, and I'm showing the 5-star of him on the screen right now. But there's just so many of them, and I started going through on the test account, which I'm using right now, and I just started loading up all of them, carrying all of these 4-star versions to level 70 and see what they got. And I just started to realize there's so many differences between when you look at something like I think Headstrong, Bludgeon, Ironhide, and Pipes are all like statistically very, very similar. Obviously, there are going to be major differences, but I appreciate those differences. And obviously, I got Bludgeon first. I don't even have a 5-star version of Headstrong. But man, when I started looking at these guys, I was like, man, like a lot of these rush style warriors, like they already people weren't using them at first because the healers would kind of follow behind them and stuff like that. But then I started looking at some of these guys and some of the stuff that they do, and I was like, man, a lot of these tanks really suck. And I was like, so I'm gonna go through some of the reasons why. So let me know in the chat which rush warrior do you want to start talking about first. Let me know in the chat, and you know, I got a laundry list of them that we can talk about. So let's do it. All right, I see Ghost PR joined us in the chat. Thank you for joining us, Ghost PR. Yeah, Spencer394 made the comment. I think Grimlock and Razorclaw got a huge buff recently. So they did. And honestly, for a lot of players, it's been polarizing because for Razorclaw and Grimlock, the problem that a lot of people ran into is that they were used to them doing high damage, and now they don't. But they made them a warrior class, and they're stronger. The survivability has always been a problem. And let's see. Oops, I didn't mean to click on that. So I look at the 4-star, for example. So when you start looking at Razorclaw and Grimlock, um, they gave it a decent amount of health. This 4-star is already at 38k. They took away a lot of the damage and stuff like that, and they gave it a smaller max health boost. So a lot of these warrior class bots, they have 80%. They gave Razorclaw what looks like 60, and yeah. So and I started to notice when I was looking through, when I was doing my research, the times are different for a lot of these bots. So Razorclaw actually got 12 seconds. I saw some that had like 11.4, 11.6, and I was like, dude, like, why are you fighting not to give them, why are you fighting to not give them, you know, 12 seconds and stuff like that? But all right, I was dealing with that. But with Razorclaw, you know, one thing that really started to irritate me, and I started to see that consistently through a lot of the warrior bots, is it says they smash walls, so you don't actually know how much damage they do towards the walls. But one thing I started to appreciate when I was looking at these warrior class bots is I started to look at whether they did any kind of area damage or not. And so, because some of them is just like straight line damage, and the line damage ones actually started to get really annoying because they're bots that I was like, hey, I need him to do something in the area, and they already don't do a tremendous amount of damage, so why not? And so that's kind of where I was at. So here I'm going to use the 4-star Razorclaw in there, and now I'll use them in some regular battles just because I don't want them to get wiped out on some of these Prime League battles right away. But I do want to run some tests. I'll start at zone 15 to start out. And I see a couple people in there talking about Rampage. I see Scrapper and Bone Crusher. Everybody want to talk about. So yeah, we can get to some of those. And I'll go through Razorclaw real quick first because we talked about them recently. But what I'm looking at, so 4,004 damage. This is pretty decent. You can take care of a lot in some of the lower zones with that. And one of the things I looked at is when Fabian was still working on Earth Wars, one of the things that he did, he gave that max health boost to a lot of these bots. But a lot of Razorclaw users got mad at some of the damage that he lost. But that's like, he is a warrior class bot now. So he's got great range. But one of the things I notice, and one of the things that always comes up when you're talking about tanks, is, and see right there, you can actually see a good example of him having that damage in the area when you use his ability. I think that part is actually great. And I think they still actually got a little bit of his on the test server. They might actually have a little bit of the damage that he used to do. But I mean, here we in zone 15. Definitely like this guy a lot in events. Actually got his 5-star that I use in events to just try to take bases quickly with that great range. But I want to go through my notes real quick because I had specific things that I liked and disliked about each bot, and I remember them. But I just want to make sure I don't leave anything out for real. And yeah, I love that he's got the long ability duration. It's 12 seconds long. I love that he does area damage. He's got a decent G1, which I can show here in a minute. Because he was a special class bot for so long, they actually had to give him something to increase his ability damage. And so now when you go use that Razor Claw G1, you're able to bump him up. Like I said, this is the 4-star version. Not a decent amount of oomph for what you're trying to use them for, probably in a lot of events. Some of you guys in the lower levels, probably in the war and stuff like that. But it is weird to me. Most of these bots have an 80% max health boost. They gave him 60%, and for the cost that he has a lot less value than some of your other bots, like we already mentioned, like Headstrong, Pipes, Bludgeon, and Ironhide. It's a lot less value for what you're actually getting out of him comparatively, but the price is still wound up being a 3+ 2. A 3+2 is pretty much a standard, it seems like, for most rush tanks, unless they do something amazing. So let's see. And I see Jacada joined us. Thanks for joining us, Jacada. And Ghost PR was asking, what does the Titan Tech tree do? Um, so that is, so when you have a Titan, the tech tree just gives different buffs to a bunch of different bots. A lot of times it's by bot class, but it breaks it down because sometimes they give, and I went to the wrong screen there, but sometimes what it does is it'll give you either different attack, defense, or Titan perks. So a lot of times you'll see like in tier 1, it starts giving you warrior attack stuff, minions. You got tiers that start talking about gunners and combiners. So you get all kinds of buffs. And then same way on defense, for each of your different defensive buildings, you can try to just build those up by different levels. Like I got all this stuff maxed out. It's at level 5, but you gradually just kind of add to your Titan tech tree so that you can give buffs to your offense, defense, and your Titan itself. So it's pretty cool. I wish they would add more stuff to it. I know they did just add the stuff as we got the new Titan, as we got the Arc and Nemesis. So we got 5 more, but they gave you exactly enough for how many skill points you had left. So that was pretty cool. Candyman said Inferno's name is barely legible. Just call him Inferno. We're not that that stupid. Nah, man. I mean, honestly, being like a lot of the times the apes are just trying to be respectful to the lore, and so for Predacon and Inferno, the next endurance, but yeah, they just want to write up there that hey, I mean, they probably could have done Beast Wars like a lot of people were talking about last week, but they just said they wanted to identify as that is from the Predacon faction. So all right, Spencer 394 got a 5-star Grimlock from the Titan event, but personally feels it's a better pull value now. Yeah, nah, I agree with that. Yeah, and that's what I was talking about. Candyman, they did have some new ones for when we got Nemesis and Arc, and I keep going to the wrong screen. I was supposed to be going to the screen that's actually got the Titan Tech Tree stuff. But yeah, we got all this stuff up here on the side, which I still haven't leveled on the test server yet. Like I actually still got it. Actually, I think this stuff reset on me because I had tested all this stuff, and now it's actually in game. But yeah, you got 4 new ones. I think I said 5 earlier, but you got 4 new ones with the new Titan. All right, so let's go take a look. And I'm just gonna rotate some different rush tanks in here into just mix them in with where I would use them with my war team and stuff like that. All right, so I saw a request in there to use Scrapper. We'll talk about him. Now, Scrapper is unique because one of the things I like about Scrapper is they actually gave him a 100% max health boost, so that can come in really handy. It sounds like on paper, right? And let me go to my notes about him. But Scrapper, for you guys on the Autobot side, that's jump stream, and I do like it. Anytime I see 12 seconds or above for an ability on one of these rush warriors, I like it. Um, the damage on wall things is irritating. It doesn't say specifically how much. Um, this is a maxed out 4-star. Says 2,748. It's a little bit on the low side for how much damage it's going to do to the target. Um, but here's what kills me. His ability, the initial use, is 4 points. So 4 plus 1 for a warrior bot. And the argument is always this. Now I'll tell you, just for clarity's sake, when you go to Headstrong, 3 plus 1. That's the 5-star version. But 3 plus 1. So everybody always makes the argument that hey, this one is much cheaper than the other ones. Like I said, the standard is pretty much 3 plus 2. So I always make arguments for Bludgeon, who is 3 plus 2. But I like a lot of the stuff that Bludgeon actually does. But then you got Scrapper coming in here at 4 plus 1. And now it's just like, man, that's really interesting to me. But that initial use can make them pretty much expensive, and I think that we're kind of overrated. And actually, let me look at it again. I think we're kind of overrated the fact that he's got 100% max health boost as opposed to an 80%. His damage is decent for 4 stars. Health is decent. So let's see how much of an impact that actually has on us in battle. We'll go into zone 15 again. Yeah, and so it's 80, and good point by Robert C4. So the base damage for him is 80%. Once you get, he does have the ability 11. The ability 11 adds an additional 20%, and that's really that's all his ability 11 does. So that's one of those talking points that I'm just kind of like, you know, like what do you do to really make him great? Um, if they put this in the 5-star batch right now, are people gonna use that over Bludgeon? Are they gonna use it over Headstrong? And the answer is most likely no, even with the health boost. But you can see that when you go use this little max health boost, I mean he is pretty sturdy. I mean he's a traditional tank. And there's nothing wrong with that either. So I don't know. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. But I started thinking because with the rush tanks though, one of the things we started saying, hey, all of them gonna get a shield, all of them gonna get a health. Well, not all of them. Most of them gonna get a shield. Most of them gonna get a health boost. But then you start looking at some of these guys, and they start trying to make little minor differences. Now you guys know me. I love to just have like little small tweaks to some of these bots and different elements to the bots. But then I started looking at like Bone Crusher. Bone Crusher's got the Fire Rush for another 3 plus 2 plus 80%. 12 seconds, cool. Damaging walls. I already expressed how I feel about that, but damaging walls is cool. Setting buildings on fire. So you're looking at 3.1k. But then you go to Rampage, and they pretty much do the same thing. Same cost, same max health boost, 11.4 seconds instead of 12. A little tiny bit more in the fire damage. And, when you start looking at the damage piece and the health piece, so you get 472 here, which isn't bad for a 4-star maxed out, and then 35k. You get a little bit more health and a little bit less damage for Bone Crusher, for them essentially to be the same bot. Now, I would wholeheartedly love for some of these fire tanks to kind of just jump into the meta a little bit. And I know for the longest time, because people were saying that they wanted to try to push the 5-star combiners to come out, a lot of people were going for Rampage. They were saying that they wanted Rampage, and I'm gonna go up to Zone 16 this time. But a lot of people were pushing for Rampage to be in a batch just for that reason. Now, I hadn't released that video yet. I know a lot of you guys probably saw the interview that I started with Dale. I did the first installment of that earlier this week, just talking about everything that was going on in the game for 2023. And I actually end with everything that's going to happen in 2024. So I'll try to get those videos released soon as possible. They're already made, they're already edited and stuff like that. And so I'm just trying to spread out the release a little bit so everybody can kind of, ask me questions and stuff like that. So I imagine in the next 2 weeks I'll have the whole series, my interview with Dale out. But I would love for fire acid bots to come into the meta. But I'm starting to think that these rush tanks might need a little something else. Maybe something that helps the whole team. I'm thinking about like kind of like a Rodimus Unicronus, where he does a boost to the team. Not necessarily have to be a boost like that where you're adding to the damage. Or maybe if all of these guys started to have something where they would just benefit the team as a whole, I think it would be beneficial to them and allow people to want to pursue them, give them reasons to not just use Headstrong and Pipes, not just use Bludgeon and Ironhide. Robert C. Ford was talking about my interview with Dale. It says I was being nice. No, so, and if you listen to what I was saying, that was the icebreaker questions that I was kind of asking. Uh, it does get gradually more intense as we go through the interview with Dale. So, you know, and if you still feel that way after you watch all, it is 6 of these videos. There's 5 more left. I'll probably drop part 2 this weekend. Um, just let me know what you think. Like I asked him some tough questions. I will say a lot of people probably could have done it. They probably would have been a little bit hard on him. But no, I was really having a good time talking to Dale this past week, man. Like it was a really fun interview. We talked for like 2.5 hours, almost 3 hours. If you include the time that we were talking before and after stream. Um, and he just seems like he really wants to do a lot for the game, man. So that part I can definitely appreciate. But what I was saying was is that like one of the conversations we did have, me and Dale and I, is that they are a lot of bots that we don't select in batches that go to a 5-star batch, knowing that they're usually going to get a rework. And I think a part of the problem is like when you go look at some of these warrior class bots, a lot of them we just look at it and say, "Hey, man, didn't mean to put exhaust in there." A lot of them we just look at it and say, "Man, this bot sucks." So if that's the case, well then what do you do? What do you do to try to to try to, you want bots in there that you say, hey man, I love this bot as a 4-star. I'm going to try to move it as a 5-star. But if you look at 5-star combiners, and right now I'm going to take a look at raw off-road, who is one of the one-off bots that can equip calibers, who is somebody that people don't really care for as a combat bot too much. For you guys on the Autobot side, I believe that's Trenchfoot. But then you start looking around at a bot like Off-Road, and I said, dude, this is somebody I would like as a 5-star because he's doing this glass gas. They gave him, he's got the standard 80% max health boost, 12 seconds. Glass gas is at 60%. So this is somebody, when I was saying earlier, that could potentially help a team in a support role. This is somebody that could do that. Now his health is pretty decent. It's somewhere around the standard for like a 4-star. It'll bump up a little bit as a 5-star if they were to give him one. His individual damage is actually pretty good. Now he does have calibers in there, so his base damage will actually be at 428. With calibers, you're gonna have an additional 32%, so that brings him up to 649.7. And I'll do this. I'll give him the Onyx Prime because he doesn't have the kind of health that some of these other guys got. Now, when I look at ideas for tanks, this is the kind of stuff I really love. This is the kind of stuff I really love just because now he's performing a support role for the rest of that team. So I'm actually going to drop a couple of bots because that's how I think he's going to be useful. And when you go get that glass gas effect, it's gonna be helpful. But I say one of my problems with off-road is this. I think they should have just gave off-road a straight up area of effect because he goes to where, like, look at, so everything that's trailing behind him is cool, but like there's other things really close to him, like that mortar right there, that you could have actually spread some of that to like that mortar, maybe that build bot, maybe even this Spider-Man over here. So I wish they would give him like kind of like a splash glass gas type effect where he could do multiple things. And I think the fear is that if you do that, he's not gonna that he's gonna be too strong. Now, if you I don't want to say that they should increase his cost or anything. And I'm gonna X out of this real quick. I don't want to say they're gonna have to increase his cost or anything because I think his cost is already up a little bit. But at the same time, what he does is actually really good. So, but if you don't beat people out of using, the meta rush tanks, what people actually use them, I think they should. You know, um, but at the same time, and I think his ability 11 added 20 more percent if I remember correctly. So here, um, well, he's 3+2. So I think it was C clamp that I was thinking about that actually costs a little bit more. So let's take a look at him and we can compare him to off road. So yeah, C clamp. The problem I have with him is he actually gets really, really, really expensive on repeat use. So he starts off at 3, but you're adding +4 to every time you use him after that. And I get it, and to a certain extent, because he does massive damage to walls, which you guys can see is I put the Alchemist Prime Core up there because I know he's going to regenerate as he does all that damage to the walls. But then, like, his actual damage that he does to the target it's relatively low, and then you get 40% more to an area for 10 seconds. Now I love C Clamp a lot. I think he's great, to be honest with you. So I'll use him next and see how that goes. Yeah, Mercenary Terror could hear Deceptidog in the background. Yeah, I think somebody's delivering a package. You know, Deceptidog is really territorial. And so he's like, hey man, like, who's that coming up to my house? So, and I also see Terra talking about Inferno shoots rockets, but he's melee. So that's actually been the topic of conversation all week and most of last week when we first started testing them. So, and I'll talk about that real quick before I go talk about anything else. So, you can see here that his range is long range. He's going to shoot your typical gunner rockets. But like I was saying last week, you know, he's got melee combat. So I think that's something they did on purpose because typically when we go into playtest, they say if you got something in his long range, you want to go ahead, give him a long range combat. And it sounds like Space Ape's not going to do that. So what they told us is they were going to give us two options. Now we can make this dude do insane amounts of damage, or we could um, just kind of give him something that fixes range, make him not do melee. Because like when he actually goes into battle, if an outpost bot pops out, he's going to start fist fighting with him. Well, you know he's not really built for that. I mean, he's got decent health, but I think it's a part of the strategy where, you know, as far as balancing, where they don't want him to rush forward. I think they want him to rush forward to kind of just make it so you're not just spamming his ability. But I was like, well, you don't want to kill him, so then what do you do? So they were talking about reducing his speed and possibly letting him, you know, possibly doing something with the range so that he doesn't, basically letting his ranged attacks, um, let him attack outpost bots at range. But then when we actually started testing his ability in like Prime League or something like that, um, this damage actually wasn't all that great. So we were looking at something somewhere around the neighborhood of where Sea Spray is damage wise, or we can fix, you know, the problems, the obvious problems he's gonna have with Path. And I don't think we should be in that ultimatum, but we'll see how it turns out. I know they'll be working hard on it next week. All right, so here we got C Clamp, and I really like that he's got uh some area damage here. I really like when these guys have like a little bit of area damage. You get the little splash there, so that the team can kind of follow right behind them and do their thing to try to clean up with the additional 40% damage that's gonna get done. I think he's really really good. I would like him as a 5 star for sure. And you can kind of see it. It kind of moves kind of quickly. He does get expensive because of what he does. I do understand why he's expensive, but you might not need much of anything else if you use him. So let's see. So yeah, bot counterpart, Beast War, Ironhide. So definitely really good. Now I will say when I started using these guys at the higher levels, um, you know, they did get taken down kind of quickly. I think a lot of that would just be due to balancing that will probably be done when they go as a 5 star. But yeah. Merc Terra says certified Terra combo on C Clamp. Robert C. Ford says he would be using a companion on him. And that's the thing. With a lot of these bots, that's that I one thing that I don't like about some of these warrior class uh the combats that go on these warrior class bots is the the ones that give them they don't I always like to play to a bot's strengths, and their strength is having typically high health, is typically having um some kind of way to regenerate or something like that. And so we don't really have that many of those in the game. Like, and when we did, um, when we had pterodactyl and like Tyraxodon stuff like that, you know, the healing was much lower. It's at 12%, which I understand is going to be lower because how much health that these rush tanks have. But that's all that they have is like that 12%. So we'll see how it goes. Now I tell you who I do really like as a tank, and that is Breakdown Prime. And it's just because even as a 4-star, man, that dude has a lot of health, man. He's at like almost 42k. The damage is a little bit lower, but he makes it up for damage that he does in his special ability, and he makes it up and having that 66% slowdown effect. And you know what? I would just like to see more bots that deal with ice or some kind of slowdown or something like that. So I like him a lot. I think he'd be dope. But this is what I talk about when I say if you have a bot that can do a whole lot for your team, these are the kind of things I'm talking about. Like if you can do 66% slowdown, that automatically helps your team. Automatically helps the team. So I would just really like to see some of these rush style warriors start to get some of those types of perks where it's going to be extremely beneficial to the entire team. And I see one comment that says, yeah, they'd love to see a 5-star breakdown prime. I have to agree with you, and I think that the problem is once people get stuck on using certain bots, are they actually going to go for them? I would probably go for them, to be honest, because it's something that I could use, and I could run like a two tank setup probably. I got one spot on my war team that I could kind of flex out, and I think it will work well. I see my good friend and fellow content creator RGM10 joined us. Thanks for joining, buddy. And we were just sitting here talking about some of these rush tanks, and I think this might be a good example here because you got a little bit of a cluster there in the front. But when you go and send this guy into action, and everybody gets slowed down. Now this is another one that I feel like he might need a little bit of an area of effect when you dash in instead of just a line, because you're going to destroy a lot of this stuff as the team follows behind them. And that's really one of my only complaints about him. But like when you go use a bot like this and everything slows down, you notice not only is he staying alive pretty well, but the entire team in turn stays alive due to the speed reduction. Like they're not really losing any health at all as compared to on the other battles where they started to lose some health. Is because that damage is so low coming from the defenses. Yeah, RGM says he wants a 5-star C clamp. I wouldn't mind seeing that at all. I don't know if I would get them before Breakdown Prime. I think I would take Breakdown Prime first. I mean, like now you're giving off Guy Hawk energy, in addition to being an actual pretty decent warrior. So I think I would go Breakdown Prime first. then maybe C-Clamp, and then maybe some of the other rush tanks. And I think I caught most of them. I mean, obviously we talked about, you can talk about Bludgeon and Ironhide. I talk about them a bunch. I'm not going to talk about them a bunch here. I think so. The one, and it's already going to get a rework, and I saw somebody mention it in the chat. But Barricade and Drift will eventually get a rework, and I've been trying to rack my brain on what we could do to make Barricade and Drift pretty good. And the problem is, Barricade has the lowest health, I think, of any rush warrior in the game, but has really, really nice damage. But then you can't do anything else to increase the damage. And I get it, the damage is already naturally high, but all you get is like companion type combats. You can't even use some of the typical combats that you would use with a warrior class bot. So then you get what you think is going to be a good ability is the essence theft, and then you can go in for, essentially a life steal. Decent damage for a maxed out 4-star, but he still has that low health. So what's most likely to happen, especially as you get in higher levels, he's probably going to get killed before you get up to before you get a chance to actually get that double healing that it's going to have. And that's what we get. So let me know in the chat if you guys were going to rework Barricade, how would you go about doing it? What would you change? Because after the apes come back from their holiday break, this is probably going to be one of the things we actually work on. Yeah, I just kind of touched on Rodimus Unicronus, Michael Cooper, just because, like, we've talked about him at length in other videos. We know what he does. He's going to give you that boost. And I think we can understand that the biggest thing with him is that, because he's doing a big support role, they don't give him as much. They don't give him as much damage. But look at him, like he is plummeting damage, and this is just zone, is it 15 or 16? He's just plummeting damage like instantly. That's gotta change. And so to to the point, talking about Rodimus Unicronus, maybe if we gave him a similar effect, but we made it with life steal, where the entire team, all the damage they do, starts to give them some healing back. Then maybe you could let them still be squishy. Maybe you could still let them just not have as much health, and then that will help probably a lot with a lot of those front-loaded bases. So I was thinking something along those lines, and see how it works. But as it is right now, he's just not usable. But yeah, like to your point, yeah, he did die in seconds. Yeah, got a comment that says, I don't care about Barricade's health. I just want him to be able to equip melee combats. And I think that's a fair point. I think that when you got a guy that's only got 25k health, now there's a 5-star version of him. I didn't max him out. I'm working with 4 stars today. I think that there's no harm in letting him use a melee. Like, I understand that they took his damage up pretty high. You could always take that down. I think they wanted that to be a unique part about him. He does like a lot of damage, especially with him being one of the earlier bots in the game. But nah, man. Jamie Carpenter joined this and says that Barricade needs melee combats, 80% max health, like the other warriors, and maybe have his health up like 20%. And I can see that, but I think they're gonna do some. I think they're gonna do something more dynamic. I don't think this is gonna be one of those things where it's just gonna be like it's just gonna be a stat bump. I think they're gonna try to do something to make Barricade and Drift like really cool, and I'm just curious to see what that idea might sound like. But I would like a team life steal. just based on the team's damage, and they have to be like within like a close area or something like that, and then maybe all the damage the team does goes back to barricade. Like I don't know, it's got to be something different than what they got though. I'll keep thinking about it over the weekend, and hopefully by the time we start back up again and play test, um, some other people have ideas too. Candyman said, "Give him acid." But all right, man. So that's what I think about our rush tanks. I want to talk a little bit about these Titans and something that we were talking about, and we were actually talking about it last week a little bit because I'm actually laughing at the chat because Tara hates the acid meta, and when Candyman started joking about acid, he's like, "Nah, don't go do acid." Chris said Barricade just needs more base health, which I do totally agree with. He does need base health. But anyway, looking at this thing with the Titans, and it's actually something that Big Blade was talking about last week, and I asked him to explain it to me. But one thing that I noticed with these passives for the Titans is that each Titan does something a little bit different. So, like for example, Tripticon does this fire resistance. So I was like, cool. So it's 20% reduction for fire damage for you and your ally. So, you know, it's going to pass on to the bots that you're in battle with, as well as Titaness. So, and then you got 22%, I mean, excuse me, 20% damage for using bulletproof from ranged attacks. So, what I started looking at is, so I got this maxed out 4-star Tripticon, right? And I started looking at what the Nemesis does. And so, when you start looking at the Nemesis attacks, you got Melting Beam, a fire attack, which, you know, when you start looking at it, oh, okay, well, you know, I got fire resistance when I use Tripticon. So if you're using the Arc of the Nemesis, you've actually got two abilities here that got fire, because you also have the Catalyst Gas that does fire damage. Now you got two other abilities here as well. So you got the Shattering Rain, and it says it's going to reduce the target's attack power by 30%. So what I want to do is I want to go. I started running some tests, and I said, well, what happens if I go run Tripticon against the Arc? These passives, I think. And so what when I was talking to Big Blade about it last week, he said, you know, it's a rock paper scissors type theory where each Titan has a strength and a weakness that plays into the hands of one of the other Titans' strengths and weaknesses. And if that is true, I absolutely love this idea. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna focus solely on the Titan battle here, and I'm gonna take my Tripticon maxed out 4-star against a maxed out 4-star Arc and see what happens. Alright, so what I'm gonna do, Barricade was gonna die anyway. I'll just drop him on the battlefield so he can just go there and just die. And that way we can focus a little bit more on the Titan battle. Now, one thing I was looking at is you're gonna have to know what kind of abilities the Titans are using. But my thought process was this: if I always use my abilities on the base, is there a way that I can still win the Titan battle while using my abilities on the base? So that's actually what I'm gonna do. And I'm gonna see if he actually wins this battle. Right now, because of the resistance that Tripticon has, it actually looks like he's ahead. And I'll just use this on the base randomly. See if he actually wins. So far, it looks like he's still ahead. It's time to use his ability again. I'll go use that on the base. Because a lot of people get so scared that, hey, if I don't win this, then I'm going to wind up losing the overall battle. So it looks here like using that ability might have cost me the battle. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to reassess. I'm going to fight the same opponent again, but I'm going to change his loadout to see if there's something that I can exploit here. So I use the fire resistance here. And that also, and I don't know what abilities. I just kind of went in blind. I don't know what abilities he used. It didn't look like he was using the fire abilities. So, but I do know this: I'm protecting from ranged attacks, and for the most part, this dude all has ranged attacks. So I think that I might be able to try something a little bit different. So this time I'll go in there with Tripticon, and I will use his fire resistance. Actually, I don't want to replace fire resistance. I want to replace, yeah, I want to replace fire resistance with slowdown, because in this particular case, it doesn't look like that particular arc is using the fire abilities. So I'll use the slowdown, so enemy bots and defenses get slower. Now I would think that that's actually including, I think that's actually including the Titan itself. So let's test that theory as well. And I see that Andrew Stevenson joined us. Thank you for joining, Andrew. The game in my test server keeps crashing. Oh, and Andrew Stevenson is in there visiting, watching us from Tokyo. Yes, I'm actually in the United States, in Delaware myself. All right, so now I'm gonna go fight the same person. Go fight Shanny 53, and I have the slowdown equipped this time. Let's see if it makes a difference. Because what I'm trying to create here is an opportunity to just, depending on what I see loadout wise for the defending Titan, make it so that I never lose. Or, and here's the second part, one of the other things is that if I do lose, I want to make it take as long as possible, because there's going to be times where my team is going to beat the base before the Titan battle ends. So my biggest goal is to not have that Titan just wailing on my team at the end of a long run. So here I'm just kind of speeding it up. I'll use that Titan ability. I just kind of want to see how this goes. Now, right now, it looks dead even. But my goal here is not use any abilities on the base, which it looks like on this particular loadout, I might not be able to get away with that. And it looks like Tripticon is still going to lose. So I might not be able to do it there, but let me see what it looks like with a different arc loadout. So I'm gonna go to another one of my, and I'm like, right now, like I said, I'm really testing the theory. I think Goose has arc. And I think it really boils down to, I don't think that the last base was using any of the fire abilities. And since they're not, you're not getting that reduction. Because if I was getting that reduction, then I could have used the fire resistance on top of the range resistance, and I would have been able to. What I suspect is happening is that I would have been able to stack them and not even have to worry about the battle at all. Now I know there's been some thought that with the Titan battle, I think some of the concern is that, hey, if you bring out a new Titan, it's new content, he's automatically going to dominate old content. Well, what I think should actually happen, and what I saw when I was doing a little bit of my testing earlier, And you can actually see. So now they're actually using some of the fire abilities, and they're using some of. Now I don't have the fire resistance on right now. And I think it's going to actually be a lot closer, and I can actually win it this time. Now I actually want to come back and use it with the fire resistance. Let's see. Andrew says in most of the battles, Titans are more of a distraction. Not that they're cool to have just at the end if yours dies, a considerable disadvantage, which I do agree with. So I actually want to try another Titan. I was going to try Tripticon again. So I'm going to go into my lab and I'm going to switch to Scorponok. And I want to look at his Titan effects. So he's got a survival instinct, which is going to be 30% reduction from your Titan, from your enemy Titan's abilities. So that's all abilities. And then you also have a resistance from beam damage. And so this is why I actually think the Scorponok is so dominant against Tripticon, because Tripticon, you know, his some of his main abilities are of the beam type. But I also want to look at his attack. So if you have here, Scorponok has electrical, a lightning strike, electrical type. You know, you got a piercing beam, but you have several electrical type. You know, you got an EMP beam here. So like, say you go use Scorponok, and then you go use the Arc or the Nemesis, and I'm gonna actually switch out to the Nemesis and activate her. And then I gotta go find me somebody who has. I gotta find somebody that's actually got Scorponok loaded. So let me see. I think Lord Farquhar got one. And I keep getting logged out. But what I think is gonna happen is that because the Nemesis has electrical resistance, that's what's gonna actually cause them to completely overpower dude, I lost my train of thought just that quick. Scorponok and yeah, so like when you look at Scorponok and they have that electrical stuff, so this is what's gonna actually allow you to, and then you can also get a little bit of reduction from melee damage. So um, all of your Titans are gonna do some level of melee damage. So then it makes me wonder if you are able to just kind of strike gold and have a lot of melee in a battle with Scorponok or Fort Max, what exactly happens? Let me see who Waza's got on his con account. Who he's got as his Titan. Alright, on that one he's got Tripticon. Let's see who he's got on his bot account. Ugh, I should have. I'm trying to remember who I actually had up here that had trying to remember who I had. Maybe he had. Trying to find somebody that's got Metroplexel, Scorponok. Because I think that resistance to electric is going to come in play. Actually, I'm pretty sure he has one. And you know, a lot of people got the Arc and the Nemesis up there from us just testing. Alright, you still got Metroplex. Man, I really should have wrote these names down and everything. Let's see, we find one of my alliance mates in there, Action Well. Alright, cool. Finally found the Scorponok. So let's see how Nemesis does there. And I don't think it's because like, when you actually look at their damage for each Titan, man, this thing is really breaking down tonight. But when you look at the damage for each Titan, and when you look at the health for each Titan, they're completely identical. And so I think it really boils down to whatever these passives are doing, if it plays to the strengths or the weaknesses of the loadout or the opposite Titan. So if you go into if you're in war and you go into your scout screen and you go look at these things to go scout them, and you notice they're using, like, say you notice that Scorponok and Fort Max are using electrical abilities, maybe that's when you say to yourself, hey, this is a good situation to go use Arc and Nemesis because they got that electrical resistance. And so we've seen a couple of battles and how close they were. Let's look at see just how far out this this battle is and see, like, I expect that I'm going to win this battle. They've got a level 20. Yeah, they got a little level 20 Metro there, or Fort Max, excuse me. And because of that electrical resistance, I think they should dominate. But the biggest thing for me is I want to use those abilities on the base. Like I said, I'm still testing this theory out to see how it works. I gotta make sure I actually get the electrical resistance on. And so it looks like here, like I still lost. So let me look and see what I got in the loadout. Kind of check it out. And that's it. It actually, when I was looking at it the other day, it looked like it was something to it. So yeah, I got the electrical resistance in. So let's see. I don't know, it's kind of interesting. It was a theory that I was chasing, but I was like, I'm gonna go try to take a little bit more look into it and see what it does, because it seemed like I'm trying to find the sweet spot here for all of the different Titans to see what exactly, if there's any difference between when you use certain Titans. So, you know, if any of you guys see anything any different, let me know. But all right, guys, I think I'm gonna call it a night. You know, thanks for joining as always. Um, and just so you're aware, like I said earlier, I think I'm going to release another part of the interview with Dale. Is probably going to be on Saturday. And so that way, especially for a lot of you guys that finished the event early, you have some Transformers related content to look at. And I'll still be on Thursdays going until the end of the basketball season. So I will see you guys in 2024, and I will see you on the battlefield. Freezy is out.